Monday Night Football is here, and whether you're trying to secure the W in season long or win $1 million in DFS, you'll want to know who the 7 best plays are for tonight. Let's discuss. Broncos wide receiver KJ Hamler has the best matchup of any Denver receiver. He'll be starting in the slot, and he'll get former Detroit Lions slot cornerback Justin Coleman. And this is a great matchup because the last couple of years, Coleman started his career off as a solid cornerback, as you can see right here, his first couple of years. But these last 3 years, yeah, those grades, anything at 60 or below, not great, including last year where he finished outside the top 90 cornerbacks in the NFL. This is not good. But it is good news for Hamler, and that's not all. Hamler will have a major speed advantage versus Coleman. He runs about a 4.3 in terms of his speed, top 1% speed of all time, when Coleman's running in the 4.5s, which is most definitely a slower cornerback. Plus, heading into this game, Seattle, their secondary is banged up. So if Hamler goes to the outside, he'll also have positive matchups. Their 2 starting cornerbacks in Burns and Sidney Jones are dealing with injuries, and then they're going to be missing Jordan Reed in this one, and they're also going to be having another cornerback in Brown on IR. So here's your takeaway. Hamler is going to play from the slot and work downfield. And this is a similar role as to what Tyler Lockett had when he had major success with Russell Wilson in Seattle. So start Hamler this week, especially in DFS where he's going to be very, very cheap. And then consider this sleeper quarterback, because believe it or not, this man, Gino Smith, last year had the exact same quarterback grade as Russell Wilson, and when you break it down into actual passing grade, he was slightly higher, and he was better, much better, under a clean pocket, as you can see right here. 131 passer rating versus Russ's 111. Now here's what you need to know. Gino Smith started 3 games last year, and in those 3 games, he averaged 16.8 fantasy points per game, which is pretty solid numbers. For reference, this is similar production to what Kirk Cousins and Russell Wilson did last year, and it was more than Ryan Tannehill, Derek Carr, and Daniel Jones had. Plus, Gino Smith was the #1 graded quarterback in the preseason, meaning that he was playing very well not only last year in his limited starts, but also this preseason. That's why he won the job. And one more thing. Gino is going to get to face the 30th ranked secondary in the Denver Broncos from last season. It's a little bit healthier to start the year this year, so it should be better, but his mobility will also help him evade their pass rush. And not to mention, he's going to get to rely on 2 veteran stud receivers in DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And speaking of those wide receivers, DK Metcalf is a must play in this game. He has a very strong matchup against veteran cornerback from the Broncos, Ronald Darby. And similar to Justin Coleman, who we talked about earlier, you can see here that Darby started his career off pretty dang solid, but the last couple of years, the last 3 years specifically, have been shaky, including last year where he finished outside the top 75 cornerbacks as a coverage grade. And check this out. If you don't already know, DK Metcalf is a top 1% speed and size athlete. He's 229, call it 230 pounds at the wide receiver position, which is 35 pounds more than the cornerback he'll be facing this week in Ronald Darby. And this matters, especially in the red zone. And Gino Smith loves targeting DK. See for yourself. In the 4 games that Gino Smith played last year, he started 3 and then came in the second half of 1 when Russ got hurt. DK averaged 19.62 points per game, fantasy points per game, which was actually 52% more than he did with Russell Wilson last year. So you can expect DK to get open and targeted often in this one. Play him and then start this next sleeper. And that would be Seattle running back Travis Hamler, who, if you're in a deeper league in season long, is probably the only spot you're considering him, but he's definitely a daily fantasy, a DFS, strong sleeper, low cost play. And there's a couple of reasons why he's a sneaky play. To start, Kenneth Walker, he's unlikely to play in this one. Even if he does play, I don't think he'll see that many snaps or that much usage at all. So you're going to get Travis Hamler seeing more usage because Kenneth Walker had surgery on a hernia just a couple weeks ago. And the second reason is that Seattle is a 6.5 point underdog, meaning that they're going to be trailing in this one likely in the second half. So just look at it this way. Rashad Penny is surely going to be the running back 1 in this game, assuming that Kenneth Walker does not play. But Penny is not known as a pass catching running back. He had just 8 targets and 6 receptions in 10 games last year. That's very bad usage, and if they're going to be trailing in the second half by 6 to 10 plus points, he's probably not going to be on the field. Instead, it's going to be the passing down back Travis Hamler, who actually led all the Seattle running backs last year in both receiving yards and receiving efficiency. So you can expect Homer to see a lot of second half usage. Consider him in play and then secure this next stud. And before we get to that stud, it's important to know that the Denver Broncos in this one have a 25.25, this number right here, team total. That's how much points they're projected to score by Vegas. So we take that information and we combined it with Benjamin Albright's latest report out of Denver camp that Sutton has definitely been the favorite target in practice for Russ, and it's not particularly close. There's a gap here. So we take those 2 pieces of information, the nice team total, plus the fact that Sutton is the clear wide receiver 1 here, and we look at similar situations in Sutton's career where he's been a favorite with a 25-point team total. Basically, very similar situations to this game environment, and in those 4 games of his career, he's averaged 17.7 fantasy points per game and about 10 targets per game. And now he has a better quarterback in Russell Wilson than he did during that time. So long story short, he scores about 63% more points than his career average in these similar situations. But that's not all, because Sutton is going to face Artie Burns and Sidney Jones. Probably more Burns in this one, but he'll see both cornerbacks. And that's assuming that these guys play, because both starting cornerbacks are currently questionable for this game. And Artie Burns is their best cornerback, assuming that we say Quadre Diggs is a safety here. And Burns is dealing with a lower body, a groin injury, and it's a nagging injury. So this is going to be an advantage for Sutton in terms of he is healthy. But that's not the only advantage he has, because Sutton weighs about 218 pounds, which is 20 plus pounds more than both of those cornerbacks, and he's going to have at least 4 inches on both, meaning that both downfield for jump balls, which he's a specialist at, and in the red zone, he'll have an advantage. So prioritize him and his quarterback. And yes, that would be Russell Wilson, who this week in this game against his former team, the Seahawks, oh, the drama on Monday night, will have the 3rd best pass blocking advantage against Seattle's defensive line in this game, meaning he'll have a lot of time to throw against an injured Seahawks secondary that he knows all too well. Now check this out. We mentioned earlier that Seattle were 6.5 point underdogs, so that means the Broncos are 6.5 point favorites, and like we said with Sutton, they have about a 25 to 25.5 point team total, which is a solid total. They're going to score a good amount of points, almost 4 touchdowns. And Russell Wilson has played about 15 games in similar conditions in his career, and he averages 23.4 fantasy points per game, which is more than his career average. And those numbers make him a must start in your fantasy leagues on Monday night and in daily fantasy sports. If you're trying to win $1 million, he's the guy to go to. And speaking of winning some cheddar, I took some player props for this game, ones that we've already kind of talked about. I took Rashad Penny under 50.5 rushing yards, and this one I have him projected in the 40s. DK Metcalf over 50.5. I have him in the mid 60s, so that one is definitely one that I like a lot. And then both quarterbacks. Over on Gino Smith, he'll be trailing in the second half, throwing more. And then the under on Russell Wilson, just barely. I have him in the upper 250s. So if you don't want to take that one, my 2 favorites would be Gino Smith and DK Metcalf. Now, if you want to follow these bets, you'll get a free deposit bonus matched up to $100 on Prize Picks, and I'll throw in a $20 Amazon gift card because you'll get my weekly cheat sheet by clicking the link in the description and following the 2 simple steps. That cheat sheet comes with my weekly projections, ranks, and player notes to help you with your props, your fantasy leagues, or DFS, and that $20 Amazon gift card. All of that. So if you want to take advantage of this offer with the thousands of other people who already have this year, you can click the link in the description to learn more. So I like Russell Wilson and his running back in Melvin Gordon, who's being disrespected in my opinion, because according to Benjamin Albright, Denver reporter, he's expected Melvin Gordon to see basically 50% of the workload, again, like last year, about a 55-45 split. Yet this isn't currently reflected in Melvin Gordon's fantasy prices, whether it is DFS, where he's cheaper than Javonte Williams and a lot of other running backs, or if it's his season-long start percentage, where he's not started in more than half of the leagues. So here's what you need to know. Referencing this same tweet from Benjamin Albright, there's a key note at the bottom of it. Melvin Gordon, not only is he going to see close to 50% of the workload, but he's also going to get the situational work, the short yardage, and the big one here, the GL, the goal line touches. And last season, Gordon saw a lot of red zone usage, the 12th most red zone touches, but he also saw 8 goal line carries where he converted on 75% of them, 6 touchdowns based on goal line touches, so like every other game. So here's your takeaway. Gordon was a top 20 running back in production last year, yards per touch and yards created per touch, so it's not like he's cooked. He's still very effective. And more proof of this is just that he was top 10 last year in evaded tackles or broken tackles, finishing 7th. So you can expect him to be on the field a lot against a Seattle run defense that ranked 28th out of 32 NFL teams just a year ago. Now, these are the best plays for Monday Night Football. And if you want even more content just like this, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and take advantage of that offer linked in the description below.